life, love, and the pursuit of FI with your hosts Austin Cole, Greg Gaskin with special guest star Peter.
Hey, so thanks for joining us on the show today, Peter.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Today we're talking about risk management, and we will be talking to Peter about how he manages his risk.
Yeah. So, Peter, what does risk management mean to you?
What does risk management mean to me? So like if maybe like we can start like from a personal aspect, right? Like so non-finance, right? Risk management is like, hey, listen, I'm going to drive my car as safely as I can. I'm not going to drive when I don't need to. I'm not going to like start anything with someone in public because I'm not ready to get murdered over some Chick-fil-A, like that's risk management, right? Because if things like I think for most people, like from the website, the forums, from the subreddit, whatever, like most people have a really good life and they're pretty like financially stable. So the only downside is you getting clapped at the Chick-fil-A. Like that is a real risk, right? So whatever you do, just don't get clapped in real life. That's just 100%, right? So from a finance side though, for me, I think like risk management means like not having all my eggs in one basket. But then like it's a moving spectrum of like what I concentrate on and what I need to like really like step back from when I identify like, oh, hey, like things are going south real quick. I'm more of a risk taker than not, like the last couple of years. I think like as with most people. But yeah, it's that to me is what risk management is, right? Is the physical side is like don't get hurt and don't get killed over something stupid. And then the other side is, financially managing your asset classes and the allocation and how like hard you go into a specific concentration, and what the total loss would be if it just blew up in your face. So just being able to have to calculate that out.
Yeah. So in terms of your risk profile, what type of asset classes are you investing in that you consider risky?
So I think like I'll talk about maybe a couple weeks ago when I had my full portfolio, because I made some rotations since then, right? So I was in crypto, Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum. I'm in. So I actually have a substantial position in a strip club called Rick's Hospitality. Wow. RICK. Like it's been doing really dope, but most of it's equities. I've started a small position in bonds, so like Series I savings bonds. I have a substantial 8% or so cash position, and so for me, like that's how I maintain my balance. But most of it's going to be equities. Most of it's going to be tech, FANG, or VTI. That's kind of where most of my assets sit.
Nice. For those who don't know what FANG or VTI mean, what are those?
Yeah, so FANG basically is like the Facebook, the Apple, the Netflix, the Googles. And those acronyms change over time, right, depending on what's popular that quarter. But it's basically big tech with a, that's what's referred to as EBITDA positive, meaning they're generating cash flow positive. There may not be 100%, earnings positive, but there's really high growth, typically 20 to 30% year-over-year revenue growth. So those are the FANGs, right? And they'll change over time. But then VTI is going to be the ETF version of VTSAX. That's tradable outside of Vanguard.
And for those who don't know, what is VTSAX?
So I think VTSAX is the mutual fund version of a broad-based index fund, right? That follows the total market, including large cap, mid cap. I think a little bit of small cap in there, and that sits with Vanguard. So I think it's like $3,000 for every buy-in. You would have to buy in at $3,000 increments.
So I know within our FI community, a lot of people do index investing. Is any of your portfolio made up of index investing?
Yeah, I mean, like most of my portfolio, like at least a third to like 40% is purely VTI. So I choose VTI and I don't choose SPY or VOO because I feel like sometimes like the S&P committee, right, the people that pick and select the 500 stocks that sit in the S&P, sometimes they kind of like have weird rules and they have very weird goals and they have weird metrics. I'm more of if the market says the market cap is large enough and that's what the market wants, then I want to participate in that versus like having it curated like the S&P. But those are the two most popular, right? I used to hold S&P and VOO, but I got out of that and got more into VTI.
Okay.
How do you feel about index funds that are like cap weighted? So like VTSAX and like VTI, since FANG stocks make up like the majority, like the largest cap in that fund. So like how risky would you say something like that is compared to just individually investing into like, I guess, SPY or VOO anyway?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So I think like the anecdote that I would use. So the second part of the question is, why VTI versus SPY? Because like the goal of the index investor is to capture alpha, right? The outperformance of just this dark horse, right? And the dark horse that we know is Tesla, right? So there was a time when I think it was either Pinterest or Etsy was selected to be on S&P 500 before Tesla was.
Yeah.
And Tesla wasn't a small company at the time. And so it's like they missed out on all this growth by being curators versus like on a broad-based index. Like Tesla was large enough and you had exposure to Tesla. So I don't know what the future holds, but I only know what the market believes. And so I want to participate in what the market believes. So that's like my reasoning for why VTI. As far as like market cap weighted, I think I believe that the market cap or the value of the equities, for the most part in the long run does reflect the earnings power of a particular company or the growth of a particular company. So I don't mind holding the Apple, right, more so than the Rick Hospitality, right, the strip club that I'm also in, right? It's like, why would I put an index investor through where Rick has a bit of a leg up because it's all equal weighted versus market cap weighted, right? I would much rather them be an Apple than investing in a strip club, so that for me, like, it makes sense. But like, how many of those watching, if you've picked stocks this year, you look at the index, the S&P, and you're just like completely underperforming because the stocks that you've picked in tech, have just plummeted and are in bear market territory. And so the biggest ones, right, that are market cap weighted are basically just saving people on these indexes. And that's the only reason why I'm not super underperforming is because VTI is market cap weighted to like the large, the Microsofts, the FANGs, and they have saved me. Whereas like the other stuff that I own, it's the complete garbage, right? Complete garbage, bike with an iPad garbage, right? Have completely just, eaten shit, by 50%. And I'm just like, well, there goes my outperformance for the year, So long-winded answer to that question there.
No, I love it.
So you mentioned something that was interesting to me. So you mentioned that you're currently holding bonds. Why are you currently holding bonds, and is it a part of your risk profile at the moment? Okay,
so I tend not to buy bonds like individual bonds or like straight up treasuries, because the longer the duration or the larger the duration being basically a big factor of that is the term of the bond, right? Like if you're holding a long-term bond right now, you're facing what is the face value of that bond plummeting if rate increases roll out so quickly and the yield rises, right? So the face value of the bond goes down if yield rises. I hold the bond, the Series I, which isn't tradable on any index, or I'm sorry, on any market, on any platform. It's purely an interest accruing bond through the Treasury Direct, right? Their janky little website that everyone's like, is this like for real? Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like if you logged on, you're like, dang, this is like some janky website. Are they going to take my money? Like, is this a scam?
Yeah. They're running some 1999 technology still.
Right? That's some like GeoCities shit, man. It's like, dang, you know, like, man, who designed this? But so the reason why I bought those bonds is because there is a catch. Like you get 7% for the next 6 months, and then it resets, you know, in another 6 months. One, I don't face like the risk of my face value of the bond plummeting because no one's trading it, right? It's not tradable. And second is the interest accrues, and once you get like your lockup done after a year, like it becomes my emergency fund in a way. So I need something that's uncorrelated with the market because like it's going to gyrate like this, right? The market's going to do what the market's going to do, but I need to have some dry powder that's generating some type of return so that, hey, listen, like one day I wake up and the market's like negative, you know, 15% in the red. Like that's a buying opportunity. Like I need to have dry powder that's uncorrelated to the market to buy the dip.
So as we roll into 22, currently it's December of 21, inflation's up about 6%. You know, a lot of people are worried with what's going to happen in 22. I think the Fed's already said that they're going to raise rates 3 times. What are some ways that you are preparing for this?
So what are some ways I'm preparing for this? So I've already prepared for it by just getting a refinance on my mortgage. You know, I hold, you know, in a high inflationary time, like I want to hold like, you know, inflation denominated dollars, right? So, cause it's going to inflate, like my earning power is going to go up much higher than, you know, the interest rate debt, right? So I refinance my mortgage. I think the second part is just from a personal spending. I think people underestimate how flexible the American consumer is with alternative purchases. Like, you know, Costco has done so well because guess what? Like people are, you know, instead of going to a Target, they're going to Costco to save a little bit of money, you know, or maybe they're not buying beef, they're buying chicken, you know, like they're getting gas at Costco. Like, have you seen the gas lines at Costco, man? Shit is like fucking crazy on a Sunday.
I have not.
Like it's.
I'm strictly a Sam's Club person. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so not all of us can be successful.
So I buy my gas from a grocery store. It's called Harris Teeter, and they're actually owned by Kroger. But the cool thing is, for like every dollar, I think you get like every dollar you spend, you get like a point or something like that. I can't remember the metrics for it, but you can get up to $3.50 off a gallon at their gas stations if you accrue enough points. So like if you spend enough money, your money kind of comes back to you in that way, and that's what I really like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like it's like almost like using the app Gas Buddy to like spot the cheapest, and I'm assuming that chain is probably the cheapest in your area.
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty dope. But you know, some people change their behaviors to where it's like they're not driving as much anymore. Like I don't commute to work. You know, I get a lot of stuff delivered right from Amazon, so I don't go to like Home Depot to go buy like one part or whatever. I know some people, you know, straight up just like ride bicycles around town as opposed to like driving their car. So it's surprising to see how flexible people are in you know, in like $4 gas per gallon, you know, areas.
Yeah. So
I wish I could ride my bike around.
As you mentioned, right, a lot of people are no longer driving or driving less frequently since they work from home. Some people drive more because they, you know, picking up side jobs like Uber Eats or whatever. But as we go into the future, you know, I believe that automation is going to have a very big part in our future. You know, we can kind of see it right now with the truck driving industry and the self-driving truck. You know, not every truck driver is going to be replaced. But what are some things you can do or we can do as individuals to prepare and manage our risk when it comes to automation in the market?
That's a good question. So like I always engage with like people who, you know, who don't believe that it's ethical to hold capital and to derive value from the labor of others, you know? But in this case, like, you're absolutely right. Like, it's going to shift away from a labor driven type of economy for these like key processes to like very much a capital factory manufacturing these trucks, designing the AI, designing the systems and the control boards that, drive the trucks around. So for me, like, I'm looking for just a free option. That's like probably the best phrase I can describe it. So what I mean is, when I look for a free option, I'm looking for companies that may have a possibility, either as a dark horse, meaning like something that's unexpected, or it's very obvious that they're going to, be, probably leading the way, are the vanguard for that specific technology, right? So I think, Tesla is, very close to, autonomous driving. I think Waymo, with their tests in the state of Texas and, in Arizona have shown like really good opportunities. So, Google, Teslas, I think the NVIDIAs of the world, right? The people that build the chips to process all that. So that's where you want to allocate your capital, because ultimately at the end of the day, right, it's like, I don't necessarily want to invest in the company like Old Dominion, right? I would rather invest in like these dark horses that like will disrupt that industry, like 100%. It's going to take decades. It's not going to be overnight.
Of course. How do you find those dark horses that you're mentioning? So before they hit mainstream news, how would you, Peter, find a dark horse?
So I think one of the things that's a strategy that's interesting the last like decade plus, right, has been this like complementary type of business model. I'll give you an example, right? Amazon is valuable because of AWS and its logistics system, and not actually for its e-commerce, right? Its e-commerce provides the networking cash flow for it to reinvest in these other sides of the business, right? Google, right? It's known as the search, but it has so much cash flow, it's throwing out money at these, high flyers and, wish upons ideas, but it actually does hit like YouTube, right? Was a flyer. And now YouTube is the future of search. So for me, it's like, I look at companies that have a tremendous amount of like free cash flow and is like largely a monopoly or a duopoly in their industry, so that they can afford to just straight burn money into these areas that, that once they like unlock it, once they achieve it, it's going to be like the next iteration for them to go from 2 trillion to like 8 trillion or something like that. I mean, that's the whole thesis behind Tesla, right? I mean, the value of the electric car is not a ton, right? It's the autonomous driving and the decentralization of energy storage and energy generation, right, through the solar partnership. So that's the idea behind it. So whenever I look at companies, I'm like, what's my free option here? I'm looking for something that cash flows, that's a good company, that's a duopoly or a monopoly in their field, but I'm looking for that option because that's just a freebie for me. I don't go after like the fucking 100 million market cap flyer that's like, hey, we're making these batteries. Like, that's going to be tough. Like, you got to buy like 100 of those. And it's like, you're basically almost like a venture capitalist where you expect 99% of your investment to lose money, like to go to zero until that 1% hits. And that's just not my style.
It makes sense.
Yeah, no, you just rather invest it into strip clubs.
Hey, you right? You right? You right? I actually have a thesis behind it. Like, there are some people that have a thesis behind Macy's. I have a thesis behind Rick's Hospitality. Like, 100%. I truly believe, because they're based out of Houston, I truly believe, like, no one's willing to touch them because of, like, ESG concerns, like, environmental, social, governance concerns, because it is a strip club. But, it's like, it's a cash cow, man. Wait, so and I'm not just talking ones, I'm talking like
Rick's
real
Hospitality.
Cash.
You invested that through the stock market, or like actually investing like direct?
are you
Like,
saying
like,
do I show up at the
it,
club and throw dollars at them? No, bro, I don't do that.
no, like, is it actually like a tradable company on the open market?
It's a trade. So the ticker is RICK. So like I'm not advising anyone to jump on. I'm not advising anything. I'm just saying that like for me that's a bit of a flyer, but there's a margin of like safety there, and meaning relative to the cash flow it generates to a Darden, to an Olive Garden, right? To like these other restaurant businesses. Because they are actually like a big part of them is a restaurant business. Y'all ever ate a burger at a strip club? That's what's up. That's Rick's.
I have not.
You've never eaten? Okay,
I have
that's
not
good.
Either.
Well,
I have had wings though.
You've got standards in your life. Very good. Well, hey, you must have been loved as a child. Congratulations. No, so like, there's a margin of safety there where it's like, if it plummets to like $5 a share, the company would be able to buy itself back, like buy back all the stock within a year and a half, if not less. So it'll never go to zero because it does generate cash flow, for the stakeholders and shareholders.
Are they a dividend paying company?
I mean, like they do pay a small dividend, but so I'm of the mindset that dividends is irrelevant. So that's like a very classical finance theory where it's called the dividends irrelevance theory. So if like viewers at home, if you want to look it up, basically the idea is that mathematically on a balance sheet, right, your dividends comes from your cash flow from operations. So a company can either pay it out or hold it as retained earnings on the balance sheet. And mathematically, it's the same thing. But people, for some reason, just love the safety of knowing that I don't have to sell my stock and I'm going to get a little bit of cash to live on. The reality is that you can create your own dividends. So at scale, like let's say if you have 10,000 shares of Rick's and Rick's is no longer paying a dividend, well, if it retains its earnings, that stock value goes up by 1.25%, right, for the year, and you just sell 50 shares, and that's your dividend right there. Mathematically, it comes out to be the same, all things being equal. Now, if Megan Thee Stallion shows up at Rick's, right, and she's just blowing it up on Twitter, right, and it's literally going to double in value. Obviously, that dividend relevance theory doesn't hold because there's a different catalyst for that stock. But for basically like for viewers at home, like in traditional finance theory, dividends are largely irrelevant because you can get into a lot of traps that are called value traps, right? So like a value trap is like AT&T, like 100% value trap. But then people like the dividend, but it's like they don't realize it's like, oh, by the way though, like the operating cash flow is like not great. They have a lot of debt and the management's not great. But then they're paying out like a 9% dividend rate or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but it's not a good investment to be in just because they pay a dividend. So that's my opinion on it. As far as dividend.
None of the three people on this podcast are financial advisors, nor is anything we say financial advice.
Boom.
Got
it.
All right. You're on your own.
So going back to Rick's, what made you first want to get into Rick's?
So it's funny because a friend of mine was like, "Hey, listen." It was at the time like 100 and like maybe a $250 million market cap, and it was like beat down, right? It was like in the middle of the pandemic, right? Everyone was expecting for them to go out of business, like 100%. Like, in that kind of business, you own the real estate and you have to service that debt. And if your doors aren't open, like you're not going to be able to service the debt. Like you're about to go, So basically, like it was so beat down. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, listen, dude, like I'm about to go ham and like buy 1% of this, right?" Like he wanted to like go in at 2.5 million to pick up 1% just so he can put on his Twitter tag, owner of Rick's strip club, right? And so I was like, "Why would you buy this? This makes no sense." Until like I started digging into it, and then it started to make sense. Where it's like, oh, well, actually, if they survive the pandemic, like they own their real estate, they're able to, service their debt. And, listen, like, food, water, strip clubs, bro, like that's like the hierarchy of needs for a lot of people. Like, you check your privilege. If you're from a happy family, like there are some dudes that like just like depend on strip clubs as their as their, relationship or like emotional well-being. Like they go there and they have fun, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, if they can survive the pandemic, I think this is going to be a cash cow. So I don't go ham, but I put some money in, and it's just like it's done really well since then. And I'm just going to hold it, right? Because I think it is a concrete business, and there's very few competitors, right? All the competitors are mom and pops. Like this is the true nationwide chain of adult themed nightclubs.
So I guess like what clubs are under Rick's? Are they all called Rick's?
No, so I don't have an exhaustive list in my head, right? I'm not out here like, oh man, I'm about to hit up Sapphire tonight. No. So they run under Rick's. They'll run it under a few other names because they'll buy from mom and pops, right? So it runs under like Onyx or something like that in Houston, right? That's a Rick's establishment. They also own Bombshells, which is not a gentleman's club in the traditional sense. It's very much it's a Hooters style or a Twin Peaks, right? Because someone had the great idea, hey, listen, like what do we need more of in America is these, restaurants with scantily clad women. But they do the concept really well.
Yes.
And Bombshells is always busy. Like I always drive past them. I never like actually go to one. I always drive past them, and it's always filled with cars, pandemic or no pandemic. And so they just know how to run the business really, really well. So that's why like.
So I have to go to Bombshells next time I'm in Houston.
You got to go to Bombshells next time you're in Houston. 100%. We'll all go together.
Also, disclaimer: I have never been to Houston, so I would love to come to Houston.
Have you been to the South?
Me neither.
Often, like Houston, Dallas, anywhere in the South, Louisiana.
Nowhere in Texas.
I used to live in Kansas,
I've been there.
And then go ahead.
I've been to New Orleans, so Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Virginia.
North Carolina's the best.
But but still never made to Texas. I need to get on down there.
I went to Amarillo.
That's like barely Texas.
I don't know if you. Yeah, I don't know if you got to do that as
Yeah.
Texas, but I would like to go back and check out more of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you'll enjoy Houston, Austin, Dallas. I think there's some nice areas in East Texas if you're like into like trees and shit. I think like in West Texas, there's a place called Marfa, and it's like very like artsy indie. And like that's like kind of a cool destination for a lot of folks into that bohemian lifestyle. But other than that, like it's like you drive for hours and hours and hours until you hit your next large city. Like it's a lot of land that's like there's nothing there, like completely nothing. So good road tripping, But I prefer the East Coast. Like whenever you go through up the East Coast, like it's so easy to get to places. And like you're an hour, 2 hours maybe away from New York City, Chicago. I mean, not Chicago, but like, Boston, any of these East Coast towns. It's so convenient.
I heard that you can drive 11 hours in Texas and still be in Texas.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. You can like drive all the way up north or into the West Texas. Like someone told me a joke. It's like, if you see your dog running away in West Texas, you'll see your dog running away for 3 days. Like, because it's so flat, right? They're so flat and there's so much land that like all you do is just drive through it for hours and hours and hours. Yeah.
All right. So, would you say that living in Texas is also a part of your risk management strategy?
So I think like I believed that for most of my life until like almost recently, and I'll kind of explain why. Okay, so I think in Texas, like the low taxes is great. Like it's super like conservative, like liberal, like libertarian style freedoms, right? Does have some benefits to it, but like some of the things such as like infrastructure, public transportation, the education system, is just like so terrible. Like it's terrible. And I can understand why some people rather live in California or live in Boston, Boston, Massachusetts. Like I've been there for like a week and I'm like, I feel really safe here. Like I don't have to worry about, getting mugged, getting robbed, when I'm at the park, the weather's nice enough to walk around and I'm not going to get flooded out. Sometimes like every year, like I have to buy flood insurance because even though I'm not in a flood area, quote unquote, that may change, So I think there is some risk that's popping up in the state of Texas and specifically Houston, that I don't really like and that I may have to reassess and determine like, maybe I can like move to another nicer state with better like social programs. Because the ACA here sucks. Like the American Cares Act insurance sucks. So like retiring early here does have like some downsides to it.
Now, with that being said, would you want to go to, because some place you might have to go will have like state income taxes. Would you be willing to accept that to move to someplace with better programs?
Yeah. So I think like people do the mental math and they get scared of state income tax. But if I retire, I won't truly have a ton of income, right, to show. So let's say I make all my income in Texas. By the time I'm ready to retire, I move to a state with income tax. But I buy a property, right, or get on a property, even the state property tax is much lower than Texas. Like I pay almost 2.25 plus on the value of the home here in Texas, and like it's probably the taxes and the insurance to insure my home from like weather, catastrophic weather and stuff is almost as expensive as my mortgage. The principal and interest. So sometimes people don't like fully appreciate that like, man, we pay a lot in property tax here in Texas because that's the only way they generate revenue, other than the state sales tax.
What's like an average tax bill for you?
Man, ballpark? Yeah, I mean, I think
Ballpark
like
figure.
Before the homestead, like so, I had to file my homestead. So in the state of Texas, like if you file your homestead, they do reduce your property tax. I think I was paying upwards of like almost like $7,500 to $8,000 a year on my house, and my house is not that big. Like, so it was actually quite expensive, and it's basically like to rent an apartment, it's like $1,200 or $1,000 in Houston. Like I'm paying almost like what $800 or so, maybe a little bit less on just the property tax, and that's before the insurance portion. Like that's wild, bro.
Yeah, my mortgage is
all in?
$1,397.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
PD.
PITI.
That's pretty good.
Oh wow, yeah.
My annual property tax is like $2,800 maybe, and I'm in a 2,500 square.
Yeah, all right, bro. Hey, don't flex on us like that, bro. There's only so much bandwidth, bro. There's only so much bandwidth.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
I'm advertising for you to come
So
join North Carolina. That's what it is.
Isn't there a town like Ashford, Carolina, where it's like Asheville? Okay, yeah.
Asheville.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like
Asheville.
that sounds like
It's up in the
a nice
mountains.
Colorado or an Austin to me out that way. Like I wouldn't mind moving out there. Like I hate hot weather, dude. It's terrible.
And see, like the cool thing from where I am, I'm located in Charlotte, so I'm like 2 hours to the beach, 2 hours to Asheville, 2 hours like to Raleigh, 2 hours to like Columbia, South Carolina. I'm like in a good location, and like if I ever wanted to fly, like I think it's like a 3-hour flight to Mexico, or like it's just super convenient.
So,
are you
going to hang on to your property forever, or is that something that like you're going to ultimately like flip later down the line?
That's a good question. I think that ties into my risk management. So I currently house hack it. My rate is 2.1.
Damn, 2.1. That's amazing, dude.
Life. And then probably like,
oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's only because of the
gotcha.
VA loan. I also
Yeah.
got a percentage from working for the employer. So like
Nice.
my
Yeah.
employer is the person who gave me the loan. Yeah. So working for a bank has upsides. But I want to keep buying properties here in Charlotte, along with all over the United States, and then being able to rent them out. And then 20, 30 years down the line, I have a bunch of paid off properties, and then I can give them to my kids, or allow them to continue the passive income journey. But just to have them have the ability to never have to work again in their lives.
Sorry about that. I had to log off my my phone. It kept overheating.
Overall, would you like to be a guest again on the
I mean,
podcast?
I'm not sure if I have anything interesting to talk to you guys about, like, because you know how other podcasts, like, they bring on an expert or a subject matter expert, and they talk about, oh, hey, like this, that, and the other. Like, I'm not an expert in anything, like, yeah, strip club investing.
Strip club investing.
So okay, so all right, so I'll leave you this with this tidbit, okay? Basically, sometimes those businesses are the most successful is because they are able to achieve arbitrage. And here's why. And here's what I mean by arbitrage, okay? So Rick's, I think, trades at like 9 to 12 times forward EBITDA, meaning forward cash flow from operations. When they go and raise money, and they sell like company stock to raise money, they use that money to buy out mom and pop regional strip clubs for 3 to 5 times EBITDA, right? But the cash flow from the strip club. So you have this difference delta of like 5 or 6 times multiple. And basically, in theory, they can continue raising money at the corporate level and using that money to buy and roll up these regional strip clubs. And guess what? These regional strip clubs are day one operational, right? They just got to go in, clean up the Roombas, get the DJ right. And they're basically generating, probably 20% more cash flow, right, from the operations almost overnight. So that's like, that is like, was one of the reasons I jumped in. And so if anyone notices those businesses, like, especially like small cap, mid cap size businesses, and they have that type of strategy where it's like the stock is trading higher than the cash that they're having to use to buy these small little businesses to expand, that's a good play. That's a good play. It works until it doesn't, obviously, but in the short term to medium term, that's a good way to expand. And they just like keep growing. They just keep growing and growing and growing. So I'll leave you with that. Yeah. But then again, don't take investment advice from me, man. I bought a bicycle with a fucking iPad attached to it and lost 50% of my money. So like, don't take advice from me or take my viewpoints like seriously. But I will admit, when it's a losing position, I don't hang on for longer than I need to. Like I'm out. Like I have no qualms taking a cut.
So what percentage would you say you would hit first before you sell?
I think like at least like 50%, right? Like I'm willing.
So you have to lose 50%
yeah, because
of
like
your
if I were to
investment
go into an investment that's not an index fund, right? Like an index fund, like I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to hold it till I die, right? But for like a stock pick, right, where I want to have more concentration and have a little bit better return, if I'm picking something that I think can only go up 30%, like why would I buy that? Like I want to pick something that I think can double, triple, quadruple over a 5-year term. But I'm willing to only accept a 50% loss if my thesis changes or like the underlying business completely changes and the environment completely changes. Because now, what's my risk profile? I can lose half my money or over time go up 4, 5x. That's an amazing risk profile. And I will take those risks all day, right? And like, obviously I'm not putting like $1 million down, but like any level of substantial money. And if you can do that a lot of times, like you'll probably come out ahead. If the businesses you're choosing are of somewhat level of quality. 100%.
What do you say over your investment journey that you've made a lot of? Would you say your losses outweigh your gains, or would you say your gains outweigh your loss? Just like the bike with an ad. Yeah.
Yeah, so
the bike with an iPad attached.
So the bike with
Would
an
you say-
iPad attached was probably my biggest loss in the last 5 years. Where my other losses occur is like opportunity costs, where I'm sorry, or like missed potential, missed opportunity, where I just sold too soon. Where I'm like, okay, I'm going to reallocate to an index fund because I already made my bones, right? But then it's like it doubled again and it doubled again, and I'm like, oh crap, like I maybe should have hung on to those, right? But I mean, for the most part, like it's mainly an index, right? Like I know I'm not smarter than anyone else. I know I'm not smarter than the market. I just take small concentrations where I believe I can get a bit of an edge because I happen to understand it a little bit more than like some people if they were to do a quick analysis. But then there are also some bad beats where just like, man, like I had everything going for me, then all of a sudden it's like, the reopening just completely killed Peloton's business, and the guidance, went down 20%, and that's what completely zapped the stock. And plus now like everything's rotating out of tech and growth and into value. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take my tax loss, I'll harvest it, and I just move on.
So would you say that overall?
Well, yeah, because I have a
gains
house, bro.
are
Like,
more than
if
your
my losses were more than my gains, I would be fucking homeless. Like 100% homeless, bro. We would be doing this outside in a parking lot behind the rigs after I got slipped 20. Yeah.
Real estate aside, your investments in the market.
Yeah, of
would
course.
you say they,
Yeah, I
the
try to
gains
track
are
a
better than
little
the
bit better
losses?
in the market. Whenever I can, right? So whenever the market's done, I'm probably more or less in that range.
I'm just imagining you in a paper box behind the ricks. Holding
Yeah.
your cell phone is dying every 2 minutes. And you're just like, hold on, guys. Hold on.
Yeah, I need that Wi-Fi.
Let me connect to Rick's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You gotta charge
Then
up
you
that
gotta charge a
Roomba.
Roomba.
The Roomba comes out and be like, yo, you need to pay your tab.
The Roomba
right
comes
now.
outside into the charging port.
And then they got these like bouncer bots beating your ass,
It prints the receipt. The Roomba prints the receipt right there for you.
Hey, 100% though.
It's
Like if it's
scan
like
the QR code
diligence
to
at the
pay.
club, that sounds like it's tax deductible. Like, don't take tax advice from me, but that's what that sounds like. That's like you give me an itemized receipt. That's what that sounds like. 100%. Like.
But please consult your tax accountants and finance professionals before you listen. Before you do anything. Strip clubs, if you're listening, please don't itemize your receipts.
On that note, thank you, Peter, for coming on with us. It's been a great episode. I'm sure that this will get lots of laughs.
We're going to edit like 90% of this
Am I your
out, by the
second?
way. I hope. Until Greg just
Maybe.
posted
We'll see.
all footage.
You've done this. Oh shit! All right, so I'm.
You're our
Hey.
first guest.
You are
Well-
guest number one.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah.
No, you're not practice. We had to start our podcast with a bang.
Okay.
So we were just like, bring Peter.
Yeah, well,
And we had
set the
to
bar high.
start it off on a good note.
Maybe get the bar
Set the bar
way,
high.
Whatever. I appreciate you guys having me on, though. It was nice sharing kind of my views. I've got kind of a weird like view on things, with a lot of things, but I appreciate y'all just hanging on there. Yeah.
Of course, and thank you.
Yeah, man.
and
Hey,
we
listen,
look
but
forward to
if like
having you
Rick's
again
and like
in the
a
future.
couple of other investments, if they pay off, like you will never see me ever again. Like I am bounced. Like I'm gonna have my own, robot strip club farm out in the fucking Barbados. With all my millions of dollars. Like I'm out. Yeah, you
Just
right.
make sure you itemize receipts.
Right, because they're all write-offs. You right. You right. Itemize that.
You want to bring in business? Get itemized receipts. You want an invoice?
I'll
What do
separate-
y'all want? You just let me know. I'll get it for you.
Exactly.
You're going on Google, typing in how do I get an itemized receipt?
All right, man. But I'll catch you guys later. Appreciate the opportunity to chat. All right.
All right. Hey, thank you.
All right, thanks. And this has been the Life, Love, and Pursuit of FI podcast with your host, Greg Gaskin. That's what
And Austin Colt.
Thanks, guys.
And our special guest, Peter. Thanks for coming.